ever stood in your garden in the spring clutching a bunch of seed packets, but your mind is just a total blank? Where do these tomatoes even go? Are they going to crowd out the cucumbers? And why did absolutely nothing grow in this specific bed last year? If that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. Chaos is the gardener's #1 enemy, but today we are going to put a stop to that. I'm going to share my personal, time-tested annual garden plan with you. This isn't just a shopping list of what to buy, it's a full-on strategy. We're going to turn your plot into a perfectly oiled machine where every single inch of soil is working to maximize your yield. You'll learn how one simple diagram can save you weeks of back-breaking labor and potentially double your harvest. Ready to get organized once and for all? Let's jump right in. So why do we even need to plan? It seems straightforward, right? You have the land, you have a shovel, just dig and plant. But a garden is a complex living ecosystem. My grandpa always used to say, measure 7 times, plant once. When I started out, I completely ignored that rule. I just planted based on intuition. The result? My tomatoes were sick in the shade, pests devoured the cabbage, and my potatoes were the size of marbles. I lost time, money, and sanity. Planning is fundamentally about understanding your plot's resources. It's knowing where the sun rises and sets, where water pools up, and exactly what kind of soil you have. Without this foundation, even the most expensive fertilizers and elite seeds won't give you the results you want. Today, we are going to go from a blank sheet of paper to a detailed map that will serve as your instruction manual for the entire season. This is the bedrock. Without it, success is just luck. The first step in any smart gardening plan is creating a sun map. Plants thrive on light. Without it, photosynthesis simply doesn't happen. So, grab a notebook and head out to your plot on a sunny day. You need to understand exactly how the shadows move. Observe your garden in the morning, at noon, and again in the late afternoon. Where does the sun shine all day long? That's the zone for true sun lovers like tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, and watermelon. They require a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. Where do shadows appear in the afternoon? That's the perfect spot where cucumbers, zucchini, squash, and beans will thrive. What about spots that are bright but don't get much direct sun? That's the ideal location for leafy greens, lettuces, sorrel, and scallions. Don't forget to factor in any trees and permanent structures. Remember that the sun is higher in the summer, making shadows shorter than they are in the spring or fall. Draw a map of your plot and clearly label the different zones: full sun, partial shade, and deep shade. This simple action will prevent your sun-loving crops from stretching and starving, while simultaneously protecting your shade-tolerant plants from scorching. The second key pillar of a successful harvest is the soil itself. You can't just hope it's good, you need to know exactly what you're working with. Start with a simple texture test. Grab a handful of damp soil and try to roll it into a thick ribbon or sausage shape. If it crumbles immediately, you have sandy soil. Sand drains quickly, meaning water and nutrients wash out easily. You'll need to add plenty of organic matter, peat, or clay to improve retention. Now, if you can roll it into a tight ring without it cracking, you have heavy clay. Clay is nutrient-rich, but it's dense, which suffocates roots and causes waterlogging. In that case, you need to add coarse sand and sawdust, or compost, to break it up and improve aeration. The most crucial factor, though, is acidity, or pH. Pick up some simple litmus or pH test strips from your garden centre. Most vegetables thrive in neutral soil. If the paper turns red, your soil is highly acidic. This means you should amend the soil with dolomitic lime or wood ash, either in the fall or early spring. Without proper pH balancing, your cabbage will suffer from clubroot, and your beets won't develop their characteristic sweetness. Knowing your soil intimately is truly half the battle. Now let's talk about the geometry, the layout. How are you going to plant? Are you going to sow rows directly into the tilled ground, or should you set up permanent beds? I strongly recommend permanent garden beds. Why? Because this means you stop walking on the soil where the roots are growing, which keeps the soil loose, healthy, and full of life. The optimal width for a garden bed is between 60 and 90 centimetres. This allows you to easily reach the centre from either side without ever stepping into the bed itself. The pathways between the beds need to be wide, at least 40 to 50 centimetres. Don't be stingy with the space. You'll need to walk through there carrying water in cans and buckets, and you may even need to manoeuvre a wheelbarrow. If you stick to narrow paths, by midsummer, when the foliage has fully grown out, you simply won't be able to navigate those green jungles. Ideally, the beds should be oriented north to south. This way, the plants won't shade each other out during the crucial morning and evening hours. Make sure to sketch this entire bed layout onto your garden plan. This framework is the structure of your entire future garden. The term that often intimidates new gardeners is crop rotation. But don't worry, it's actually very straightforward. Think of it this way. Imagine walking into a cafeteria and eating only plain rice every single day. Eventually, you'd absolutely hate that rice, and your body would be missing essential vitamins. Plants are the same way. They need a varied diet. Different vegetables extract different things from the soil. Some plants, like leafy greens, are nitrogen hogs, while others quickly deplete the available potassium. If you plant the same vegetable, say cabbage, in the exact same spot 5 years straight, the soil will become completely exhausted. But depletion is only half the problem. The soil also accumulates pests and diseases that are specific to that one crop. Plant potatoes after potatoes. You're basically inviting blight and the Colorado potato beetle to a double feast. The basic rule is simple. Never return a crop to the same location for at least 3 or 4 years. To make this easy, divide your vegetables into 4 main families: leafy greens, fruiting crops, root vegetables, and legumes, or beans and peas. Then you simply shift them along that cycle every single season. Mastering this simple rotation is the key to maintaining a healthy and vibrant garden. Let's dive deep into crop rotation. What exactly is the proper sequence? We often hear about the traditional above ground versus below ground rule, but a scientific approach is far more reliable. We start the rotation cycle with the hungriest plants, the heavy feeders. These include cabbage, pumpkins, cucumbers, and zucchini. They require massive amounts of nitrogen and organic matter. This is the spot where we incorporate manure or high-quality compost. The following year, we plant crops like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, or potatoes in the same location. They thrive on the residual nutrients left over from the first year. By the 3rd year, the soil is somewhat depleted. This is when we introduce our root crops: carrots, beets, and onions. They don't need much nitrogen. In fact, too much nitrogen will actually make them spoil or rot. And finally, in the 4th year, we plant legumes, peas, and beans. They are truly the unsung heroes of the garden. Not only are they low maintenance, but they also magically return nitrogen to the soil. Thanks to the bacteria living on their root systems, they completely revitalize the ground, setting the stage for the next cycle. Make sure you write down this sequence. It is a proven, foolproof system. Let's talk about the magic of companion planting. Plants can actually be great friends and powerful allies. A classic example that every experienced gardener or grandmother knows is the partnership between onions and carrots. The carrot fly absolutely hates the smell of onions, and the onion fly can't stand the smell of carrots. Plant them in alternating rows on the same bed, and you can forget about those chemical-laden solutions and say goodbye to worm-eating vegetables. Another excellent pairing is basil and tomatoes. Basil is known to significantly improve the flavour of your tomatoes and helps deter certain pests. Cucumbers thrive when planted near corn or sunflowers. These tall stalks act as natural trellises, protecting the cukes from the wind and creating a beneficial, moisture-retaining shade. And finally, marigolds are essentially the clean-up crew of the entire garden. Seriously, plant them everywhere. Their roots release substances that kill off harmful nematodes in the soil, and the strong scent of their blooms is completely repulsive to aphids. Harness these natural connections to establish a truly healthy, self-sustaining ecosystem right in your vegetable patch. But not all plant relationships are friendly. Some plants are outright antagonists, and you absolutely cannot plant them side by side, or your harvest will suffer dramatically. The biggest bully in the garden is fennel. It suppresses nearly all its neighbours, so you need to give it its own solitary corner, far away from everyone else. Also, never plant potatoes and tomatoes close together. They are closely related and share the same devastating diseases. If late blight strikes your potatoes, it will jump across and wipe out your tomatoes within days. Onions and garlic are poor companions for peas and beans, as they significantly stunt the growth of these legumes. Cucumbers also don't appreciate the company of strong aromatic herbs like sage. Finally, if you plan on saving your seeds, avoid planting pumpkins, zucchini, and melons near each other. They will cross-pollinate, and next season you'll end up with an unrecognisable weird hybrid. Always check compatibility charts before you finalise your garden layout. This simple step can save you from mysterious failures and disappointing seasons. Let's dive into the specifics. Group number 1, the nightshades, tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants. These are southern crops. They absolutely love heat and sunshine. In temperate zones, it's essential to start them indoors from seedlings. Choose the sunniest spot you have for them, making sure it's well protected from cold drafts. The soil must be loose, airy, and rich in nutrients. Plant tomatoes deeper than they were in the pot. They'll put out extra roots. However, peppers and eggplants must not be buried deep. Crucially, consider staking. Plan for stakes or a trellis right when you plant them. Leaves resting on the soil are a direct invitation to disease. And don't forget to sucker your tomatoes. Remove those unnecessary side shoots so the plant channels its energy into producing fruit, not just green foliage. Finally, mulching nightshades with straw or grass clippings is mandatory. This practice locks in moisture and provides vital protection against blight. Group number 2 is the cucurbit family. Cucumbers, zucchini, pumpkins, and pattypan squash. These plants are incredibly heavy feeders and extremely thirsty. Zucchini and pumpkins, in particular, thrive best right next to last year's compost pile. They absolutely love partially decomposed, organic material. If you don't have access to a compost heap, prepare hotbeds or warm holes for them instead. Dig a deep hole, layer the bottom with nettles, grass clippings, and a little manure. Cover it with soil, and then plant. This gives the roots warmth and a rich, steady supply of nutrients. Cucumbers are a little fussier. They require high humidity, and their leaves wilt quickly in hot weather. Water them only with warm water and aim solely for the base of the plant, taking care not to wet the leaves. This prevents powdery mildew. And finally, a crucial tip: don't let your zucchini get too big. Younger fruits taste better, and the more frequently you harvest them, the more fruit the plant will produce. Group number 3, root vegetables. This includes carrots, beets, radishes, and daikon. The most important rule for this group: absolutely no fresh, organic material or manure. If you put fresh compost or manure directly beneath your carrots, they'll become gnarly, forked, and frankly, flavourless. Instead, plant them in beds where fertilisers were applied last year. The soil needs to be extremely loose, free of clumps and rocks. If a developing root hits an obstruction, it will stop growing straight and inevitably twist or bend. Carrots and beets are heavy potassium feeders, so wood ash is actually one of the best fertilisers you can give them. It's best to sow your carrot seeds thinly to avoid the hassle of too much thinning later on. Here's a useful tip: mix the seeds with sand or dried, spent coffee grounds. This ensures a much more uniform and less dense planting. Radishes are a cool season, short day crop. They should be sown first thing in the season, typically April, and then again toward the end of summer. If they face the heat of mid-June, they will quickly bolt, making them tough and woody. Let's call them Group 4, the cabbage family. This includes standard white cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, and kohlrabi. Cabbage is truly a high-maintenance crop. It's a heavy feeder and a heavy drinker. It needs rich, fertile, heavy soil that retains moisture well. Don't try growing cabbage in sandy plots. They simply won't thrive there. The main headache, however, is pests. The cruciferous flea beetle can wipe out your seedlings overnight. Slugs absolutely love those tender, juicy leaves. And let's not forget the cabbage white butterflies laying their eggs. My advice, immediately after transplanting your seedlings, cover the bed with a fine mesh row cover, often called agrabon or spun bond, using hoops for support. It lets in light and water, but it keeps the pests out. This is the most environmentally friendly method of protection. And never neglect watering. Cabbage is very thirsty, especially when the heads are forming. If the moisture is inconsistent or inadequate, the heads will split wide open the moment the first heavy rain hits. Next up is group number 5, onions and garlic. You'd think these are the simplest crops, right? But even here, we have a few critical details to cover. When growing bulb onions, they absolutely hate excess moisture late in the season, or they won't store well. That's why we always plant them in raised beds, where drainage is excellent and water can't stand. We usually focus on planting hardneck, or winter, garlic in the fall. A good rule of thumb is to bury the cloves at a depth of 3 times their height. Plant them too shallow, and they'll freeze over the winter. Plant them too deep, and they'll take ages to sprout in spring. Both onions and garlic really respond well to regular soil aeration. Their roots need that oxygen. If you see the green starting to yellow prematurely, you might be dealing with the onion maggot. You can treat this by watering the plants with a mild solution of salt or ammonia, but please be very careful with the concentration. Finally, don't forget the crucial curing process. After harvesting, your onions need to lie in the sun and wind for a couple of weeks until the neck has completely dried and sealed. Let's talk about Group 6, herbs and leafy greens. This includes dill, parsley, various lettuces, spinach, arugula, and cilantro. This group is essentially your vitamin factory. A common mistake is sowing an entire bed of lettuce all at once. If you do this, you won't be able to eat it fast enough, and it will bolt, becoming woody and turning bitter. The trick is to practice succession planting. Sow small amounts every 2 weeks. As soon as you harvest one row, plant a new one. This method ensures you always have a steady supply of tender, fresh greens. Lettuce and spinach are cold tolerant, making them some of the first seeds you can sow. However, remember that many lettuces turn bitter in the heat. For summer harvesting, either find them a partially shaded spot or stick to heat and bolt-resistant varieties. Parsley can take a notoriously long time to germinate, sometimes up to 3 weeks. Don't worry. To speed things up, try washing the seeds in hot water. This helps remove the germination-inhibiting essential oils. Finally, dedicate a corner of your garden to perennial herbs like mint, lemon balm, tarragon, and rhubarb. Plant these once and you'll be able to harvest them successfully for years to come. Group number 7. The legumes. That's peas, beans and broad beans. I've mentioned before how beneficial they are for the soil, but let's not forget, they're delicious too. Kids absolutely love peas. Plant them along a fence line or a trellis. They'll grab hold with their tiny tendrils and climb right up, saving you valuable garden space. Green beans come in bush varieties and pole varieties. Bush beans are faster to mature, while the pole varieties produce a more abundant yield over a longer period. Broad beans make a fantastic companion crop. Try planting them around the perimeter of your potato patch. They naturally repel moles and act as a great windbreak. Legumes don't need heavy feeding, as they famously fix their own nitrogen. The most crucial step is adequate watering while they are flowering. This ensures you get nice, juicy pods, and always harvest on time. If you let the peas stay on the vine too long, the plant assumes its reproductive mission is complete and will stop flowering entirely. Let's not forget about vertical gardening. If your space is limited, we go vertical. Cucumbers on a trellis take up 3 times less space than they would sprawling on the ground. The same goes for pole beans and even smaller varieties of squash and melons. For squashes, you will need a sturdy support system, and it's best to secure the heavier fruits in nets or slings, tying them up so they don't break off under their own weight. Vertical gardens can be constructed from various materials: PVC pipes, repurposed pallets, or specialised wall pockets. They are perfect for growing strawberries, herbs and flowers. This not only saves crucial square footage, but it also beautifies your space and helps define different zones in your garden. Plus, maintaining these plants is much easier. No more bending or kneeling for every single bed. Let's talk about watering your garden. Your planting layout needs to factor in water access. Cucumbers and cabbage require frequent watering, so plant these heavy drinkers closer to your water source, the rain barrel or the hose spigot. Tomatoes and root crops, on the other hand, can handle less frequent watering. If you only visit your garden on the weekends, mulching is absolutely essential. A layer of straw, grass clippings, or bark mulch, 5 to 10 centimetres thick, works miracles. It prevents moisture evaporation, keeps the soil loose and aerated, and suppresses weeds. Plus, mulch attracts earthworms which loosen the soil for you. Drip irrigation, however, is the gold standard. Set up the lines just once in the spring, and you'll save tons of time and water throughout the summer. The water goes straight to the roots where it's needed, keeping your pathways nice and dry. Cover crops are your ultimate gardening allies. Never leave your soil exposed. Finished harvesting your early radishes? Sow mustard. Pulled out your garlic in July? Plant phacelia or oats. Bare soil degrades quickly, suffers from wind erosion, and becomes a magnet for weeds. Cover crops rapidly develop green biomass, shielding the ground, while their deep roots aerate and improve the structure. In the fall or early spring, you simply cut them down and leave that organic matter right on the garden bed to decompose. This is the best organic fertilizer available, and it costs you next to nothing. Mustard, specifically, helps fight off late blight and wireworms. Phacelia helps balance the soil's pH, and leguminous cover crops like vetch and lupine saturate the soil with valuable nitrogen. Make planting cover crops a mandatory part of your plan after you harvest every main crop. A gardening calendar isn't just a list of chores, it's your definitive time management tool. Your plan needs specific dates, not just generalised tasks. Divide your entire growing season into distinct stages. March, time to start pepper and tomato seeds indoors for transplanting. April, sow radishes, lettuce and cabbage seedlings directly in the greenhouse. May, plant direct into the soil. Carrots, onions and potatoes. June, move your heat-loving transplants outdoors only once the danger of frost has definitely passed. July, start succession planting. Re-sow your greens, daikon and root radishes. August, harvest your onions and garlic and sow cover crops. September, harvest the remaining root vegetables and potatoes. October, plant your winter garlic and prepare all your beds for the deep freeze. When you have a detailed schedule like this, you won't panic that you've forgotten something important. You simply check your plan and get right to work. Here's another crucial piece of advice. Start keeping a proper garden journal. Our memory often fails us. You'll forget which tomato variety tasted incredible and which one split right open. You'll also forget exactly where your cabbage patch was 2 seasons ago. So grab a physical notebook or dedicate a specific note file on your phone. Document what you planted, where and when. Draw simple diagrams of your beds. Track the weather conditions. Record which pest attacked and exactly what you used to treat them. And finally, log your yields. This detailed record, this archive, is absolutely invaluable. In the winter, when you sit down to plan the next season, these notes will help you analyse your past performance and ensure you don't repeat the same mistakes. That, right there, is the sign of a truly professional approach. And finally, Let's talk about aesthetics. Your vegetable garden doesn't have to look like a depressing battlefield where you constantly fight for every harvest. It can be stunning. Think of the French potager style, where beds are beautifully shaped and framed by low borders, and vegetables are intentionally interplanted with flowers. Try planting marigolds or nasturtiums right alongside your cabbages. It adds beauty and acts as beneficial companion planting. Install elegant arches for climbing beans over your pathways. Utilise vibrant Swiss chard with those striking multicoloured stalks for visual interest. A beautiful garden is incredibly motivating. You'll want to visit it not because you have to, treating it like hard labour, but because it feels like a genuine retreat. Make sure to incorporate key design elements into your overall plan. Add a simple bench or seating area where you can relax, take a moment, and truly admire the fruits of your labour. Alright, now you have the full toolkit needed to create your perfect garden plan. We've covered everything from analysing sunlight to choosing the right companion plants. Remember, this plan is not a rigid dogma. It's a flexible blueprint that you can and should adapt to your unique space and needs. The real secret to success isn't blindly following the rules, but learning to observe your plants and understand what they are trying to tell you. Don't be afraid to experiment. Gardening is truly an act of creativity in partnership with nature. This year, try putting just a few of these tips into practice. Sketch out your design, implement crop rotation, and make sure your carrots and onions are good friends. I guarantee you'll see a noticeable difference. You'll get more bounty, and you'll experience less of the typical gardening headaches. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you found this video helpful, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Now drop a comment below and tell me, which crop is the most challenging for you? What are you struggling with the most in your garden? Let's discuss it and find some solutions together. I wish you a beautiful and abundant harvest, and I'll see you in the next video.